The NBA has become obsessed with spacing, 5-out spacing in particular. Since 2014-15, especially when Steve Kerr took over the Golden State Warriors, and they played a more smaller, up-tempo, 5-out offense, the NBA has gone increasingly smaller and smaller and spreading out the floor even wider. We'll see big men handling the ball in pick-and-roll situations, you see 7-footers playing on the perimeter, and you see the NBA is completely focused on spreading out the defense as much as possible to leave open spaces for drives, kicks, and one-mores. Where previous teams would run a ball screen-centric offense surrounded with 4-out, 1-in, playing out of the post, the D'Antoni Rockets really challenged this idea, running 5-out with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, using players like James Harden as the ball screener to create the mismatch for them in their 5-out offense. A huge thank you to this week's video sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN is a VPN service that allows you to change your location to access different things, in particular for me, the 2023 FIBA World Cup. With one click, not only are you safer browsing online, but you can change your location to set up simpler and sometimes cheaper ways of watching basketball online. One of my favorite things about NordVPN is the ability to watch my local NBA team by changing my VPN to a different location. And for the 2023 FIBA World Cup, I was able to sign up and change my location to watch games through Courtside 1891, even though NBA League Pass would only allow signups from certain countries. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/halfcourthoops to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 extra months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. This exclusive deal includes 4 months free when you sign up for a 2-year plan with NordVPN. You can find the link in the description below or go to nordvpn.com/halfcourthoops. There is no greater example of the shift to more spacing in the NBA than looking in transition, where we can see this clip from the 2016-17 Oklahoma City Thunder that ends in 3 people in the paint and an early post touch that leads to a missed floater from a big, where this spacing is never seen in today's NBA, but this was just a short few years ago, compared to this year's spacing for the Memphis Grizzlies, where you have a player running to the corner slot, leaving the rim runner completely wide open, forcing the transition defense to give up the easy dunk. Another example of this is a player like Brook Lopez, who early in his career would set ball screens in transition and then pick and pop to the mid-range or just inside the three-point line and shoot pull-up jump shots, whereas now he's setting ball screens in transition and he's picking and popping to the three-point line or even 2 or 3 steps off the three-point line to really stretch the defense early, or trailing in transition to look for the trail 3 or stretch the defense out to leave the paint open for early attacks, looking for those catch and shoot threes in transition. Although most teams previously would not look for these transition 3 opportunities, it was more of like a mid-range attack or get closer to the basket and attack. The Phoenix Suns under Mike D'Antoni in the 7 seconds or less would look for these corner 3s or these transition 3 opportunities. But it's nothing like it is in today's NBA, where you have every player essentially running to the three-point line, looking for these early 3s in transition, or at least keeping the paint open for those 3-point opportunities and then attack opportunities after that. The threat of players like Steph Curry bringing the ball up and bombing 3s from 2 or 3 feet behind the three-point line really puts a lot of stress on defenses early and forces them to pick him up higher. And what that leads to is layups behind, because you have to worry about his three-point shot, or the threat of players like Steph and Clay running to the three-point line that leads to wide open, easy dunks because you're so worried about that three-point shooter. Some teams in the past have run 5-out or had 5-out spacing, but not necessarily by design, more of in their flow, they would just space to these 5-out positions. The 2004-2005 San Antonio Spurs kind of got into that, and some of the early year Spurs kind of spread the floor, but they still played out of the post and off of players like Tim Duncan, even when they ran their kind of 5-out. You can see their stagger action here that is somewhat 5-out, but essentially still 4-out, 1-in with Duncan just spacing the floor to the mid-range. Their offense is important to note because they would run their single down action out of their strong series, where you'd have a player like a big screen down the middle of the floor for a guard to come off for a shooting opportunity. This is something that Mike Budenholzer took for his system with the Atlanta Hawks. And his system was essentially the same action that the Spurs would run with a little bit more spacing or intentional single down. And this leads us into the wide action that the Hawks would run that eventually led to what everybody in the NBA is running now. Where Budenholzer's last year in Atlanta, the team was not very good, so he had time to be a little more creative, a little more freedom to be creative, where they actually would just run 5 out and set this same single down or wide action with the big trailing screen down the middle of the floor. Definitely a designed 5 out look, more intentional 5 out, where you could see players going to the corners, the screen in the middle of the floor, and everybody spread out, creating more opportunity and space for the offense. And now this wide action or a screen down in the middle of the floor is run by every single team. This was something that he took when he took over the Bucks in 2018-19, where he would have a positionless system, having Giannis coming off the screens, Giannis being the screener, spreading the floor out with Brook Lopez, sort of combining all of those 5-out principles into one motion offense where the ball gets reversed, or if it's denied, you can screen away and have this basic screening in the middle of the floor and then 5-out spacing playing out of simple principles after it. And now this wide action or the single down action is run by essentially every team in the NBA, whether it is an after timeout situation, a flow scenario, but essentially you will see the offense come down in 5-out spacing every time, run this basic wide action with different actions off of it, really showing how Budenholzer changed the whole landscape of the NBA with one basic action. The most common action after the wide screen is denied or no opportunity to shoot off of is a ball screen, or what I call chase. So you see the wide screen and then go right into a spread pick and roll. Just an easier way to kind of get into the spread ball screen action without just coming up and setting the screen. Something that allows the big to roll or pop. So if you're a player like Jokic, he can pop to the perimeter and create that 5-out look. If the wide screen is denied or jammed, they can also flow into a double ball screen with the guard setting first screen and the big setting the second screen, allowing for a little bit tougher action to navigate if you're not going to switch. It allows the offense to have multiple options out of their flow with the first wide screen and then going into the double ball screen. You can have the first player roll or pop and then go into a secondary action after that. Another common action is to have the player come off the wide screen, flip it back or hand it back to the point guard and then go into a ball screen, what I call a dribble action, where you have the player come off, flip it right back, and then go into a ball screen. Can create some confusion. Then obviously the counter to this would be a keep, where you see the Warriors often will have like Draymond come off the screen and then keep it to attack the rim, and then kind of go right off into this action. Creates a little bit more confusion if you run it at a faster pace or a fast enough pace where the keep can go right to the rim and attack the paint with that 5-out spacing. The last main common action we'll see out of this is a elbow touch. So you'll see the player setting that screen in the middle of the floor, will then flash right to the elbow, and then they'll run secondary actions off of this. The Grizzlies love to run this action with split cuts, as well as like a back screen with their shooter coming up back screen into a dribble handoff, and then give the option for either a split cut up top or like a stagger action off the ball. The Celtics under Mazzulla like to run sort of that action where you allow the floor to be spaced and kind of create that positionless basketball off the elbow. The other 5-out look we're going to call delay, which is a Mike D'Antoni staple as an after timeout from his early days in Phoenix and then became a core of NBA offense over the last 5 or 6 years or so, sometimes referred to as open.
Tough to sit down and watch. Got all half.
Good crowd on a Wednesday night, inside of 4 to play. CJ.
The 5-out nature of this set is a pass to the middle of the floor, usually to a big, and then screening action off of it, with this spacing allowing for a backdoor cut or different looks out of it. This was really made popular by the Golden State Warriors when Steve Kerr took over. They ran this as a core of their offense, where they would pass to Bogut in the middle of the floor and then have Steph or the point guard screen down and the opposite wing screen down with multiple actions at the same time, essentially running a 5-out offense with a non-shooting big as the roller instead of a normal typical pick and roll scenario. You'll see normally a pin down screen, so you'll see a pass to the middle of the floor and then like a wide pin down screen for the player in the corner. This allows for multiple reads where the player can curl and then the screener can open up for a dribble handoff. They can also look for a quick fade or almost like a flare screen where the screener then fades right to the wing. There's also an opportunity for the screener to read whether the player goes backdoor or not for like a reject look where they get the open layup with that spacing. And then if they reject it and both players go with the player who cuts to the basket, you get a open up opportunity for a 3-point shot. The screen down into a dribble handoff is what I call Chicago. So this would be delay Chicago action, where you have the player coming off right into a dribble handoff, and then the big can either roll or pop off of that. Essentially the same thing as like a ball screen, but handoffs are notoriously harder to guard than a normal pick and roll. If you run it at the right pace and the right speed with the players coming off of it, it can put a lot of pressure on the defense. The nature of positionless basketball in the NBA also allows for this flow action to have players like Jaren Jackson Jr. come off of dribble handoffs where you'd see a non-traditional player attacking off of that action. Teams like the Kings will combine this action with an opposite 45 or backdoor cut to help when teams sort of help in the gap. This allows for backdoor cut opportunities, but also takes away any help that might stop the ball handler. Teams will also run flare screens off this, where the player in the corner is going to set a flare screen for the guard who passes the big in the middle. This allows for catch and shoot opportunities, but also the lethal flare slip action. So if teams are going to start switching any of these off-ball screens, the flare slip will be a go-to play for the offensive team to create easier scoring opportunities than layups in the paint. Teams will combine this action and give the option to the player in the middle where they can have a flare screen first and then go to the other second side into Chicago action. This occupies the help a little bit more, but also gives the offense, 3 or 4 options right off of the basic entry, allowing for reads out of that. And then they'll also run the Chicago flare action for like a big shooter. So like the Timberwolves will go to Cat, have a Chicago action, and then flare his man for the open 3. You'll see a lot of after timeout and specials come out of this 5-out setup or action. We can see the 76ers run what I call turn action, where the player from the corner comes up and turns the screen for the guard to come off into Chicago action, a staple of the Mike D'Antoni Rockets for Harden after timeouts, where they would have the player in the corner come up and flip the angle of that screen, run that little turn action, and then come off a dribble handoff. You'll see teams run a back screen or just a simple straight up back screen into a dribble handoff. You'll see the back screen into a ball screen for the big. A lot of creativity can be used in this action. A special for a big you will see is a ball reversal with a dribble, a backdoor cut, and then when that pass hits the wing, you'll see that player set a little kind of rub or up screen for the big to cut off for a layup, something that the Jazz ran for Rudy Gobert a lot under Quinn Snyder, so you see them naturally. The Hawks run it this year. The Nuggets also run it for Jokic as well. One of the main flow actions and a staple of the Nuggets championship offense was the two-man game or zoom action between Jokic and Murray, where it's a pass to the middle of the floor and then they run little two-man actions. Could be a hand back, could be a keep, could be a hand back into a pin down. It's just a lot of different variations out of it, but that action is a staple of most NBA offenses where you can kind of throw and chase, throw and go into that action and read off of that. If the two-man game or the big decides to keep it, they can always obviously attack the basket and play off there, but more often than not, they will look to keep and then search or get to the next action or try to find the next player for like a dribble handoff or a backdoor cut. And then if they have the ball in the middle of the floor and they don't really have any other options, you'll see them set what we call an under screen, which is basically a guard screening for a wing or a big in the middle of the floor, or any sort of ball screen action that involves the big handling. So you'll see like in the 76ers flow offense, they have the option to hit Embiid, and then if nobody's open, to go and just ball screen for Embiid and have him attack out of it, because bigs are so skilled now in today's 5-out offense. Teams like the Celtics will start to chain some of these actions together. So you can see here in early offense, Horford goes to the corner, a little ghost screen, and then a pin down for Brown on one side. So you get the defense having to guard 4 or 5 different things all at once. I love this possession from the Celtics where you get a little ghost screen from Tatum, a handoff, a pass, and then right into another ghost screen. Just a lot of offensive action that creates problems for the defense. Ghost screens are a staple of 5-out offenses. We'll see the player sort of kind of fake a ball screen, go right into that and ghost it, where you can see them fake that screen, pick and pop to the perimeter. This is usually involved in like guard-to-guard actions as well. I hope this breakdown shed a little bit more light on 5-out offense. If you enjoyed this breakdown, you may be interested in the 10-part series I did on Substack, breaking down all of these actions and spacing concepts in more depth and more detail. That's available in the link below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Look forward to doing more.